Shrimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Śrīla Gurudev ki jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashata Shrimad Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashata Shrimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashata Shrimad Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashata Shrimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nityal Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Śrīla Gokshara Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nityal Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura ki jai. Nityal Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Raghunath Sharda Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Ṭhākura ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradati Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund ki jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura ki jai. Sārārtha-darśinī vritti ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya vacha patitanang pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yang pravrantamanopetamapeta kritang dvaipayano virahakatara ajuhava putreti tanmayataya taravo bhinedustang sarvabhuta hridayam munimanatosmi narayanam namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet. Shrinvatang swakatha Krishna punya shavana kirtana Ridantasto hyabadrani vidhunoti suritsatam Nashta prayeshvavadreshu nityang bhagavata sevaya Bhagavatutamare bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. Tavai vasmi na jivami tvaya vina iti vigyaya radhe tvang nayamang charanantikam. Bhaktya vihina aparada lakshay Kshiptastakama ditaranga madhe Kripa maitvam sharanam prapana Vrinde namaste charanaravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Oops, I forgot to share the link. One second. Okay. There. All right. It says there aren't any comments. Usually there's a ton of comments by now. Anyways, Dandavat pranams to everybody who's watching. Raseshwari Mataji, Gargaraji, Madhvi Didi. Oh, there's so many people, I'm not going to say. Yeah, Dandavat pranams, everybody. Wow, 9 people. Okay. Today's more than normal, actually. Okay, so verse 28. So we're continuing on with Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura's commentary. One second, there's Prajumna Prabhu's there. Dandavat pranams Prajumna Prabhu. Mantramurti Mataji. Okay. One day, 5 or 9, so this is after Brahma stole all the cowherd boys and calves, and then Krishna took on all the forms of all the cowherd boys and calves. So now, one day, 5 or 6 nights before the completion of the year, Krishna, tending the calves, entered the forest along with Balaram. Thereafter, while pasturing atop Govardhan hill, the cows looked down to find some green grass and saw their calves pasturing near Vrindavan, not very far away. Remember, Krishna is now all their calves. So, when the cows owned calves from the top of Govardhan hill, they forgot themselves and their care because of increased affection. And although the path was very rough, they ran toward their calves with great anxiety, each running as if with one pair of legs. Their milk bags full and flowing with milk, their head and tails raised, and the humps moving with their necks. They ran forcefully until they reached their calves to feed them. The cows had given birth to new calves, but while coming down from Govardhan hill, the cows, because of increased affection for the older calves, allowed the older calves to drink the milk from their milk bags and then began licking the calves' bodies in anxiety, as if wanting to swallow them. The cowherd men, having been unable to check the cows from going to their calves, felt simultaneously ashamed and angry. They crossed the road with great difficulty, but when they came down and saw their own sons, they were overwhelmed by great affection. At that time, all the thoughts of the cowherd men merged in the mellow of parental love, which was aroused by the sight of their sons. Experiencing a great attraction, their anger completely disappearing, they lifted their sons, embraced them in their arms, and enjoyed the highest pleasure by smelling their sons' heads. Thereafter, the elderly cowherd men, having obtained great feeling for their sons, gradually, and with great difficulty and reluctance, ceased embracing them and returned to the forest. But as the men remembered their sons, tears began to roll down from their eyes. So this is where we read up to yesterday. And we're not reading the Sanskrit today because we already read it when we're reading Srila Prabhupada's purports. But starting from tomorrow, we will begin reading the Sanskrit with Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura's commentary. Okay, verse 35. Let's see if there's any... Yeah, I wonder if there's something wrong with the chat. Anyhow. Because of an increase of affection, the cows had constant attachment, even to those calves that were grown up and had stopped sucking milk from their mothers. And when Baladev saw this attachment, he was unable to understand the reason for it, and thus he began to consider as follows. Commentary, the Sārārtha-darśinī commentary by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. Because of an increase of prem, the cows had great attachment, even to those calves that were grown up and had stopped sucking milk from their mothers. Seeing this inexplicable situation, Baladev began to think. From the day after the bewilderment of Brahmā, all the cows would ignore their newly born calves at the time of milking and feeding their calves, which had stopped taking milk from their udders. Why did Balaram realize this now, after seeing it for so many days? And why didn't the cowherd men even notice this? It was because they were all covered by Yoga Maya from the day of the Brahma Vimohan Lila. Therefore, even though they saw the strange behavior of the cows and Baladev, the gopis and the gopas did not think to investigate it. Baladev is the elder brother of the cause of the universe, and his dear friend, Baladev is the elder brother of the cause of this universe, and his dear friend. So Krishna should have not deceived him. Though Krishna should have revealed everything to Baladev before this, he did not, because he did not want Balaram to suffer any separation from Sridhama and his other friends for the period of a year. Krishna himself did not suffer from any separation because he was close to them in an expanded form that searched for their calves. Balaram did not appear in any expanded form during this pastime. Then, after a year passed, when the Lord desired, Yogamaya gradually withdrew her cover from Balaram. It was done gradually so that Baladev could take the viewpoint of the devotee, and also to immerse him in the ocean of the Lord's power. I think that was very thoughtful of Krishna. He didn't want Balaram to miss Sridhama and the other cowherd boys. Verse 36. Okay, so this is Balaram thinking, right? What is this wonderful phenomenon? The affection of all the inhabitants of Braj, including me, toward these boys and calves is increasing as never before, just like our affection for Lord Krishna, the supersoul of all living entities. Commentary. As Yogamaya relaxed the first part of her influence, Balaram thought about the wonders he was seeing. It astonishes me how the mothers have the same love for their sons as they previously had for Krishna. It was also amazing how Balaram himself was experiencing the same love he feels for Krishna upon seeing those boys. Verse 37. Who is this mystic power, and where has she come from? Is she a demigod or a demoness? She must be the illusory energy of my master, Lord Krishna, for who else can bewilder me? Commentary. As Yogamaya removed the second part of her influence, Balaram thought for a moment about this. He invoked his power of omniscience to understand the cause of his surprise. Balaram considered. It is definitely a display of mystic power, or Maya. But what kind of Maya, and who caused it? Is this the Daivi Maya of the demigods like Brahma appearing as boys and calves to test their ability to attract us to them? Are these boys not really Sridhama and the others? Is it Nadi Maya, created by some sages who are testing their knowledge by assuming the forms of the boys and calves? Is it some Rakshasi Maya employed by the demons like Kamsa, who, failing to kill us by their strength, have resorted to some trick to kill us by disguising themselves as the boys and calves? As the third portion of Yogamaya dissolved, Balaram again considered. The mystical change must have been caused by the Yogamaya potency of my master, Krishna. Though other potencies cannot bewilder me, even I cannot check the power of Krishna's Yogamaya, which is filled up with pure knowledge. On the other hand, the Mahamaya of my expansion, Mahavishnu, who creates the Mahatattva, easily bewilders Brahma and all others. Verse 38. Thinking in this way, Lord Balaram was able to see, with the eye of transcendental knowledge, that all these calves and Krishna's friends were expressions of the form of Sri Krishna. Commentary. Thinking thus, Balaram tried to understand it by the eye of transcendental knowledge. By Krishna's will, the fourth portion of Yogamaya departed, and Balaram was able to see that all the boys and calves were expansions of Krishna's transcendental form. Verse 39. Lord Baladev said, O Supreme Controller, these boys are not great demigods as I had previously thought, nor are these calves great sages like Narad. Now I can see that you alone are manifesting yourself in all varieties of difference. Although one, you are existing in the different forms of the calves and boys. Please briefly explain this to me. Having thus been requested by Lord Baladev, Krishna explained the whole situation, and Baladev understood it. Commentary. Balaram continued his thoughts. Now, why did Krishna become the calves and boys? Where has he hidden the real boys and calves? Because even after prolonged meditation, one cannot perceive this matter, it should be understood that the cause is not Mahamaya, but rather Yogamaya, Krishna's transcendental spiritual power. One second. Krishna's Yogamaya has such great power that even his personal expansions, such as Narayan, though omniscient and omnipresent, do not have any inherent understanding of this power. Mahavishnu stealing the sons of the Dwarka Brahman is the proof given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 89. Thus Balaram could understand all of this only after looking at Krishna. With this intent, the verse is spoken. Balaram said, It is not possible that the demigods, sages, or the demons became the boys. Actually, I see that all these boys and calves are you. Although one, please tell me why you are existing in the different forms of the calves and boys. Upon inquiring from Krishna, Balaram understood everything about the Brahma Vimohan Leela. Verse 40. When Lord Brahma returned after a moment of time had passed, according to his own measurement, he saw that although by human measurement a complete year had passed, Lord Krishna, after all that time, was engaged just as before in playing with the boys and calves who were his expansions. Commentary. After describing the bewilderment of the Rajagopas and Gopis, After describing that bewilderment of the Rajagopas and Gopis, the bewilderment of Brahma is described. Due to fear, Brahma, who is called Atma Bhu, born directly from Hari, returned after one moment, even though 1 year of human time had elapsed. After all that time, Brahma saw that Krishna was playing with the boys and calves, who were actually his expansions. Baladev, however, as in the previous year, was absent due to being kept home by his mother to perform auspicious rites on his birthday. Every time it's Balaram's birthday, there's some calamity that happens. That he always misses out on. 41. Lord Brahma thought, whatever boys and calves there were in Gokul, I have kept them sleeping on the bed of my mystic potency, and to this very day they have not yet risen again. 42. A similar number of boys and calves have been playing with Krishna for 1 whole year, yet they are different from the ones illusioned by my mystic potency. Who are they? Where did they come from? Commentary. The doubts that arose in Brahma after seeing this are described in 2 verses, 41 and 42. Lord Brahma thought, where have all these boys and calves come from? Are these the ones bewildered by my Maya? Or are they different boys and calves brought by Krishna? Brahma pointed with his forefinger as he thought, just a short distance from here, the boys and calves are playing with Krishna in the forest of Gokul. They are different from the ones I put to sleep by my mystic power. Where did these come from, and who are they? 43. Thus Lord Brahma, thinking for a long time, tried to distinguish between the 2 sets of boys, who were each separately existing. He tried to understand who was real and who was not real, but he couldn't understand at all. Commentary. In this way, Brahma was thinking and investigating for a long time. Of the two groups, those bewildered by me and those playing here with Krishna, which group is real and which is false? Are the sleeping ones bewildered by me and the real ones are the ones coming? Are the sleeping ones bewildered by me, the real ones, or are they something created by Krishna? Or are the ones playing in the distance the real ones, or something created by Krishna? Or are both merely creations of Krishna? After I go to the cave and see that the boys and calves are still there, does Krishna remove them and bring them here so that I can come here and see them? And does Krishna then take them from here and put them back in the cave? Whatever the case may be, I see 2 different groups in 2 different places at the same time. Thus I'm confused. After meditating for some time, Brahma thought, I will use my power of omniscience to understand this. But even then, after a long time in samadhi, Brahma was still doubtful. Of the 2 groups situated in 2 places, which is the real group created by the Lord, and which is the false one created by Maya Devi? I cannot understand at all. Verse 44. Thus, because Lord Brahma wanted to mystify the all-pervading Lord Krishna, who can never be mystified, but who, on the contrary, mystifies the entire universe, he himself was put into bewilderment by his own mystic power. Commentary. This verse describes how Brahma fell into the whirlpool of bewilderment. Though Brahma tried to mystify Krishna by stealing the boys and calves, he, though unborn, was bewildered by using his energy against the Lord. Brahma was not bewildered by his own energy, which is the external meaning of the word svaya mayaya. Vimohita here indicates that Brahma was not bewildered in Brahma was bewildered in a special way. V stands for Visheshena Mohita. The reason for this extreme bewilderment was Brahma's great offense in attempting to use his powers to mystify the Lord. Why not think that Brahma was bewildered by his own Maya, because Maya does not have the power to bewilder in its shelter. A later verse gives an example to illustrate this. Verse 45. As the darkness of snow on a dark night and the light of a glowworm in the light of a day have no value, the mystic power of an inferior person who tries to use it against the person of great power is unable to accomplish anything. Instead, the power of that inferior person is diminished. Commentary. No type of mystic power can cover Krishna, who is the controller of Mahamaya. Rather, such an attempt shows the insignificance of the person displaying his mystic power before the Lord. This verse cites 2 examples to show this. In the dense darkness of night, the darkness produced by snow has no meaning. Similarly, Brahma's Maya could not cover the Lord, but rather Brahma became insignificant in the presence of Krishna's mystic power. As the example of snow only attributes a little how do you say that word? Causality. Yeah, that would be. So as the example of snow only attributes a little causality to Brahma, another more satisfying example is given. A firefly appears very important at night, but in the daytime its glow has no value. Similarly, Brahma can show his power in some places, but his power became condemned when he tried to spread it over the Lord. When one tries to defeat a superior power, one's own inferior power becomes destroyed. Verse 46. Tavat sarve vatsapala. Sorry, that's my habit to read the verse. Verse 46. Then, while Lord Brahma looked on, all the calves and the boys tending them immediately appeared to have complexions the color of bluish rain clouds, and to be dressed in yellow silken garments. Commentary. This is commentary for verses 46 to 48. While Brahma was contemplating these matters, he saw all the calves and cowherd boys, Vatsapala, but they gave no heed to him. They said, O Brahma, the unborn one, O Brahma, unborn one, resident of Satyaloka, verily you are a goat. The word aja also means goat. You create the universe by your intelligence, and now you want to bewilder us with your Maya. You have no idea at all who we are. Now we will show you. Look, though we are all the calves grazing on Vrindavan's grass, and all the cowherd boys herding those calves, our real form is only one form. Being endowed with spiritual vision, Brahma was able to see that all the calves and cowherd boys had immediately transformed into Vishnu Murtis, with 4 arms, having bluish complexions and wearing yellow garments. All the boys' chests were marked with the line of Lakshmi, the Srivatsa. They had armbands, Angada, on their upper arms, and Kostuba jewels, Ratna, on their necks. Their hands were ornamented with golden bracelets, and their feet with bangles. Verses 47 to 48. All those personalities had 4 arms holding conch shell, disc, mace, and lotus flower in their hands. They wore helmets on their heads, earrings on their ears, and garlands of forest flowers around their necks. On the upper portion of the right side of their chests was the emblem of the goddess of fortune. Furthermore, they wore armlets on their arms, the Kostuba gem around their necks, which were marked with 3 lines like a conch shell, and bracelets on their wrists. With bangles on their ankles, ornaments on their feet, and sacred belts around their waists, they all appeared very beautiful. Verse 49. Every part of their bodies, from their feet to the top of their heads, was fully decorated with fresh, tender garlands of tulsi leaves offered by devotees engaged in worshipping the Lord by the greatest pious activities, namely hearing and chanting. Commentary. The phrase Bhuri Punyavad Arpita means worshipping the Supreme Lord by hearing, chanting, and remembering. Verse 50. Those Vishnu forms, by their pure smiling, which resembled the increasing light of the moon, and by the sidelong glances of their reddish eyes, created and protected the desires of their own devotees, as if by the modes of passion and goodness. The brightness of the smiles of those Vishnu forms made the moonlight lament. With the sidelong glances of their reddish eyes, they created and maintained the desire of their devotees. The phrase Raja Sattvabhyam means the Vishnu forms distributed mercy with the reddish tint of their lotus eyes and the white of their smiles. Rajas means reddish and Sattva also means white. So that's another meaning. Verse 51. All beings, both moving and non-moving, from four-headed Brahma down to the most insignificant living entity, had taken forms and were differently worshipping those Vishnu Murtis according to their respective capacities with different means of worship, such as dancing and singing. Commentary. Brahma saw that all beings from four-headed Brahma down to the grass were worshipping those Vishnu Murtis with various means of worship, such as singing and dancing. Verse 52. All the Vishnu Murtis were surrounded by the opulences, headed by Anima Siddhi, by mystic potencies, headed by Aja, and by the 24 elements for the creation of the material world, headed by the Mahat Tattva. Commentary. All the Vishnu Murtis were surrounded by opulences, headed by the 8 mystic siddhis, and by the 24 elements of creation starting with the Mahat Tattva. In this enumeration of the 24 elements, a distinction is made between Mahat Tattva, which is the 23rd element, and Sutra Tattva, a state where the 3 modes are slightly manifested, which becomes the 23rd element instead of Mahat Tattva. Tattva means causes for creation of the material world. Verse 53. Then Lord Brahma saw that Kala, the time factor, Swabhav, one's own nature by association, Samskar, reformation, Kama, desire, Karma, fruit of activity, and the Gunas, the modes of material nature, their own independence being completely subordinate to the potency of the Lord, had all taken forms and were also worshipping those Vishnu Murtis. Commentary. The Vishnu Murtis were being worshipped by time, Kala, and its assistants. When one's own nature, Swabhav, reformation, Samskar, desire, Kam, fruit of activity, Karma, and the 3 modes of material nature, the Gunas. So those were all the assistants of the Vishnu Murtis. No, the assistants of time. So that's Kal, Swabhav, Samskar, Kam, Karma, and the Gunas. Their own independence, however, was completely subordinate to the potency of the Lord. Swamahi Dvasta Mahibi. Time sets the 3 modes of nature in motion. Swabhav is one's natural state formed by associating with the 3 modes of material nature. Samskar is that which brings remembrance or revelation. Verse 54. The Vishnu Murtis all had eternal, unlimited forms, full of knowledge and bliss, and existing beyond the influence of time. Their great glory was not even to be touched by the Gyanis engaged in studying the Upanishads. Commentary. One should not think that all these forms were just a creation of the Lord's illusory energy. The boys and calves were all transformed into Vishnu Murtis, or Vishnu forms, made of infinite truth, infinite knowledge, and infinite bliss. Or the meaning can be, the calves and boys were the personification of the Vedic statement, Satyam Jnanam Anandam Brahmeti Anandam Brahmano Rupam. Brahman is the absolute truth and complete bliss. Brahman is the form of bliss. That's from the Taittiriya Upanishad 2.1.3. One may object that Vedantists never say that Brahman has many forms and variations. But this verse states that the followers of the Upanishads, Upanishad Darsham, however, cannot understand the varieties manifested by Brahma due to their lack of devotion, nor can they even touch the glory of these Vishnu Murtis. This proves that Brahman and Paramatma can actually be understood only through devotion, as confirmed by Krishna in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.14.21. Bhaktyaham ekaya grahya. I am obtainable only by devotion. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita 18.55, Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha. I am known as I am known. I am known as I am only. I am known as I am only by devotion. Sorry. The Mundaka Upanishad 3.2.3 says, Na chakshusha pasyati rupam asya yam evaisha vrinute. Oh. This is divided up strange. Na chakshusha pasyati rupam asya yam evaisha vrinute. Tena labhyas tasaisha atma vrvinute tanungsvam. We had to learn, oh, it's very similar to another verse. The Lord's form cannot be seen by material eyes. The Lord is attainable only by one whom the Lord favors. To such a person, he manifests his own form. In the Shvetashvatar Upanishad 3.8, the Supreme is described as Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. He whose self-manifest form is luminous like the sun and transcendental to the darkness of ignorance. Ananda Matram Ajaram Puranam Ekam Santam Bahudha Drishyamanam. The Supreme is blissful, with no tinge of unhappiness. Although he is the oldest, he never ages, and although one, he is experienced in different forms. The Brihad Aranakya Upanishad 4.4.19, that's from the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. The Srimad Bhagavatam 10.47 states, Bahu Murteka Murtikam. You are the one Supreme Lord manifesting in multiple forms. Sarve Nitya Shashvata Chadehas Tasya Paratmana. All the forms of that Supreme Person are eternal. That's from the Mahavaraha Puran. Thus, there are many statements in the Shruti and Smriti revealing that Brahman definitely has transcendental form and qualities, which are visible to the eye of devotion by the mercy of Lord Sri Krishna. Verse 55. Thus, Lord Brahma saw the Supreme Brahman, by whose energy this entire universe, with its moving and non-moving living beings, is manifested. He also saw at the same time all the calves and boys as the Lord's expansions. Commentary. Yasya refers to the Supreme Brahman. Verse 56. Then, by the power of the effulgence of those Vishnumurtis, Lord Brahma, his 11 senses jolted by astonishment and stunned by transcendental bliss, became silent, just like a child's clay doll in the presence of the village deity. Purport. By the influence of those Vishnumurtis, Brahma's 11 senses became jolted by astonishment and stunned by transcendental bliss. The word udrita is sometimes substituted for udvritya. Overwhelmed by the effulgence of those Vishnumurtis, Brahma fell silent and could not do or say anything, just like a child's clay doll in the presence of the village deity. 57. The Supreme Brahman is beyond mental speculation. He is self-manifest, existing in his own bliss, and he is beyond the material energy. He is known by the crest jewels of the Vedas by refutation of irrelevant knowledge. Thus, in relation to that Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, whose glory had been shown by the manifestation of all the four-armed forms of Vishnu, Lord Brahma, the Lord of Saraswati, was mystified. What is this, he thought, and then he was not even able to see. Lord Krishna, understanding Brahma's position, then at once removed the curtain of his yoga maya. Commentary. Seeing that Brahma could not realize whatever sweet glory he had shown him, and that Brahma was not qualified to view any more of his endless, unprecedented glories, Krishna didn't show any more of his opulences. Even though Brahma was highly learned and also the husband of the goddess of learning, Saraswati, he said, "Oh, what an amazing thing I have seen!" Then, being mystified, he could no longer see those forms. Seeing this, and knowing Brahma's qualification to understand his powers, Krishna immediately withdrew the curtain of Yogamaya to make them disappear. In other words, by the agency of Yogamaya, Krishna covered the cowherd boys, the calves grazing on the grass, and himself looking for the calves. Krishna showed new forms of the same produced from himself, each having 4 arms. Then he made that Yogamaya disappear. Yogamaya is the potency by which Krishna is sometimes manifest and sometimes not manifest. Mahamaya, on the other hand, is the potency which covers the actual reality and displays something unreal. Therefore, in this verse, the word Aja refers to Yogamaya. What was the source of Brahma's bewilderment? Brahma was mystified by seeing Krishna's opulence. How is Lord Krishna described in this verse? Krishna is beyond logic, self-manifest, and blissful. If Krishna does not personally reveal himself, there is absolutely no means, not even by scriptural knowledge, to realize him. Therefore, Krishna is beyond logic or argument. He is also beyond the material energy, paratra ajataha. Krishna is known by the crest jewels of the Vedas, who define Brahman in terms of negation. The phrase atan nirasana means rejecting that which is irrelevant. The word atat means that which is not a fact. In the Brihad Aranakya Upanishad 5.8.8, Brahman is described as the astulam. Brahma is described as astulam ananvarasvam adirgam. I couldn't read that. That which is not large and not small, not short and not long. In other words, Brahman is defined in terms of negation by saying neti, neti. It is not this, it is not that. By that form, Brahma was bewildered. Verse 58. Lord Brahma's external consciousness then revived, and he stood up, just like a dead man coming back to life. Opening his eyes with great difficulty, he saw the universe along with himself. Commentary. Brahma returned to external consciousness and stood up, just like a dead man coming back to life. Opening his eyes, Brahma saw this universe as the object of his possessiveness along with himself. Or Brahma saw the object of his false identity as the creator of the universe. Verse 59. Then, looking in all directions, Lord Brahma immediately saw Vrindavan before him, filled with trees which were the means of livelihood for the inhabitants, and which were equally pleasing in all seasons. Commentary. Then Krishna showed Brahma the wealth of his sweetness. Brahma immediately saw Vrindavan before him. It was filled with trees which were nourishing all the living entities and equally pleasing in all senses. Let's read this Sanskrit because this is quoted in the Bhagavad Ratnamala. Yatra nasai gardur vaira sahasan nrig mrigadaya mitrani vajita vasa drutarut tarshakadikam. Vrindavan is the transcendental abode of the Lord, where there is no hunger, anger, or thirst. Though naturally inimical, both human beings and fierce animals live there together in transcendental friendship. Commentary. This verse further describes the sweetness of Vrindavan, wherein tigers and men, though naturally inimical, live together as friends. Because Vrindavan is Krishna's residence, anger, greed, and other undesirable things, anarthas, have gone from there. Sorry, guys. Nearly at the end. 4 verses. Verse 61. Then Lord saw the absolute truth, who is one without a second, who possesses full knowledge and who is unlimited. Assuming the role of a child in a family of cowherd men and standing all alone, just as before, with a morsel of food in his hands, searching everywhere for the calves and his cowherd friends. Sorry. So Lord Brahma saw the absolute truth, assuming the role of a child, searching all over for the cowherd boys. Commentary. Covering up the 4-handed Vishnumurti forms generated from his own form by Yogamaya, Krishna showed Brahma his original form described in the Shrutis as Akhanda Advitya Brahma. There, in Vrindavan, Brahma saw Krishna. What did Krishna look like? Concealing his majesty, Krishna played as a cowherd boy, standing with the same food in his hands while loitering around with his calves and boyfriends. Brahma did not see Krishna as Chaturabhuja Narayan. He simply saw an innocent boy. Yet he understood that Krishna was the master of the whole creation. Brahma thought, "Here is the Lord of the universe. I am simply his insignificant servant." Krishna is addressed here as Advaya, without a second, because all the forms that Brahma had seen until he became, Krishna is addressed as Advaya because all the forms that Brahma had seen until he became stunned had now been covered up by Yogamaya. Because Krishna is the root cause of all the other forms, he is called Supreme. Krishna is called Ananta, unlimited, because he possesses powers thousands of times greater than what he showed to Brahma. Krishna is called Agadha Bodham, Krishna is called Agadha Bodham, possessing unlimited knowledge, because not only Brahma, but even Baladev and other expansions find it difficult to understand them. Because Krishna was performing like an actor, he was searching here and there for the calves and boys. 1 year before, Brahma, under illusion, took that to be the actual fact. But now, after seeing the calves grazing on the grass in the pasture and the boys taking lunch on the riverbank, and no one seeing the illusory boys created by Maya that had been stolen, Brahma became free from his illusion. He understood that Krishna's looking for the calves and boys again was some act of Krishna's for bewildering him. Sorry guys. Anyways, usually I'd stand up now, but we're almost at the end, so I'm just going to. Thus, in the first verse of the next chapter containing Brahma's prayers, there is no mention of Krishna searching for the calves and boys. Because of Yogamaya's covering, the four-handed forms coming from himself, Krishna is described in this verse as Ekam, alone, all by himself. Krishna performs unlimited pastimes to please his pure devotees. Therefore, here he appeared sweetly with a lump of yogurt rice in his hand. For less qualified persons, Krishna shows his formless aspect. Then Yogamaya covers the sweetness of Krishna's transcendental form, qualities, pastimes, abode, and associates, and leaves only the revelation of Krishna's formless nature. Though there is an extreme difference in the realization of Brahman and Bhagavan, there is no contradiction in the scriptures describing these features of the one absolute truth. Some will claim that the phrase Shishutva Natyam means putting on the dress of a cowherd boy. Therefore, the cowherd boy form is not the eternal form of the cowherd boy is not the Swarup of Brahman, but simply a temporary form that illustrates the Lord's power to bewilder a living entity such as Brahma. Furthermore, the Lord only accepted the form of a cowherd boy as a convenient object of praise for Brahma to offer his prayers as described in chapter 14, verse 1. Nomiddate pravapuse tadidambaraya. I praise the most worshipable one, who has a body the color of a dark rain cloud. So wait, what are these points? Some will claim that the phrase Shishutva means putting on the dress of a cowherd boy. Therefore, the cowherd boy form is not the eternal form of Krishna, of Brahman. And the Lord only accepted the form of a cowherd boy as a convenient object. Okay, so even though somebody might think this is not in agreement with Sridhar Swami's opinion, because the subject of the prayers should never be an unreal thing. Indeed, the transcendental form of Krishna holding a lump of yogurt rice in his hand exists eternally. Verse 62. After seeing this, Lord Brahma hastily got down from his swan carrier, fell down like a golden rod, and touched the lotus feet of Lord Krishna with the tips of the 4 crowns on his heads. Offering his obeisances, he bathed the feet of Krishna with the water of his tears of joy. Commentary. When Lord Brahma understood that the absolute truth, Para Brahman, the root cause of everything, was standing before him in his human form as a cowherd boy of Raj, he quickly jumped off the back of his swan carrier and fell to the earth. There's a famous saying that demigods never touch the earth. Brahma's breaking this rule indicates that he gave up his prestige as a demigod. Because Brahma's 4 heads were facing in 4 directions to touch the Lord's feet, he had to fall on the ground and raise himself again and again. He bathed Krishna's lotus feet with profuse outpouring of tears. The prefix su in the word sujalai, which means water, indicates that this indicates that Brahma's tears were purified. Therefore, Brahma's crying was a form of bhakti-anubhav, a transformation of transcendental ecstatic love. (63) Rising and falling again and again at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna for a long time, Lord Brahma remembered over and over the Lord's greatness he had just seen. Commentary. After paying obeisances many times, Brahma remained on the ground at Krishna's feet for a long time due to being overwhelmed by the intense bliss. This verse is in the present tense belonging to Shukadev and was directly experienced. This verse is in the present tense because Shukadev was directly experiencing the pastime. Okay, we're ending with this verse, verse 64. This is the end of the chapter. Then, rising very gradually and wiping his 2 eyes, Lord Brahma looked up at Mukunda. Lord Brahma, his head bent low, his mind concentrated, and his body trembling, he very humbly began with faltering words to offer praises to Lord Krishna. Commentary. This verse mentions that Brahma saw the Lord with only 2 eyes, because all 8 of his eyes were brimming with tears. The word lochane indicates that with his 2 hands, Brahma wipes the 2 eyes on each of his 4 faces. Brahma praised Lord Krishna with a choked-up voice. The word ailata and the phrase Gargada Dayalatelaya comes from atita, which means to praise. La has been added to the word atita to imitate the sound of Brahma's choked voice. Hearing the word Gargadaya means faltering voice. Thus ends the commentary on the 13th chapter of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam for the pleasure of the devotees in accordance with the previous acharyas. So tomorrow we will hear the very famous, extremely beautiful prayers of Lord Brahma to Krishna. All right. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Oh man, I really fell asleep a lot during that time. I actually had a couple dreams. I guess you can dream really fast, huh? One dream I can't tell because it has something that somebody doesn't want to know in it. But like I actually had a whole dream in just like a split second. Like a whole thing happened. Anyways, we made it through somehow. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Kandaya Vikagiri Dhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashvatara Shata Shishimar Bhakti Viranta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shri Gurudev Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashvatara Shata Shishimar Bhakti Viranta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashvatara Shata Shishimar Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashata Shishmar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtarashata Shishmar Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Śrīla Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Shada Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopala Bhatta Dashagunath Shar Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Śrīla Hairas Ṭhākura ki jai. Prem se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda ki jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura ki jai. Sārārtha-darśinī vritti ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashaja. Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sandhu Bhyaiva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams, everybody. See you all tomorrow. I'm so sorry, man. This whole time I felt like I was in a dream. And I actually did dream a couple of times. But yeah, I'll see you. I'll try to go to sleep earlier tonight and not be so tired tomorrow. Haribol, everybody.